Aidan was always surrounded by noise, not the kind you hear with your ears, but the kind that fills your mind. The endless buzzing of notifications, the pressure to post, to like, to reply, to scroll. At 15, Aidan was like most teenagers, phone in hand, earphones plugged in, eyes glued to a screen. Life was something that happened inside that glowing rectangle. Outside of it, just boring reality. He didn't talk much at home. He barely looked up during meals. When his parents asked him questions, he gave short replies. He had friends online, but inside he felt lonely, though he never admitted it to anyone. One Saturday morning, his mother walked into his room with a big smile. "We're going on a trip next week," she said. Aidan didn't even lift his head. "Cool," he mumbled, thumbs still tapping. "To the mountains," she added. That got his attention. He looked up. "Wait, what kind of mountains? Remote? Peaceful? No signal, just fresh air, nature and us," she said. Aidan froze. "No signal? No internet? What am I supposed to do there?" he asked, almost in panic. "Talk to goats." His parents laughed, but they were serious. "We need Aidan as a family. A break from everything." He sighed deeply, loudly. But inside, something strange happened. A tiny part of him felt curious. What did peaceful even mean? He couldn't remember the last time he truly felt peaceful. Aidan sat in the back seat of the car, arms crossed, earbuds in, pretending to listen to music, even though there was no signal. The city had faded behind them. Winding roads, tall trees and misty hills stretched out around them. His younger sister was asleep beside him, and his parents were quietly talking in the front. They had been driving for 3 hours, and Aidan was bored. No internet, no games. "What am I doing here?" he muttered. But as the car climbed higher into the mountains, the air grew cooler. The windows fogged up slightly and birds flew low across the road. Aidan glanced outside and saw something unfamiliar. Quiet. The trees stood tall like ancient guardians, and clouds floated just above their heads. It felt like a different world. They reached a small wooden cottage by late afternoon. "This is where we're staying?" Aidan asked. His dad smiled. "What do you think?" Aidan shrugged. "I guess it looks okay for people who don't have YouTube," he said. The next few days followed a rhythm Aidan hadn't felt in a long time. No alarms, no school bells, no rush. They woke up early, they hiked, they cooked simple meals, they talked, really talked, over warm soup and firewood crackling in the small cottage stove. Aidan still missed his phone. He still reached for it out of habit. But each time he found it useless in his hand, he started looking elsewhere. One morning he stepped outside, alone. The valley below was covered in soft mist. The sky was a soft blue and the trees stood in perfect silence, as if the world was holding its breath. He walked down the narrow trail by himself. Birds sang quietly in the trees. The earth was damp under his shoes. The breeze carried a chill that touched his skin and made him feel alive. He didn't know where he was going, and for once he didn't care. He found a wide, flat rock near a bend in the stream and sat down. Water rushed past below him, dancing over the stones. A butterfly hovered near his shoulder before flying off. He took a deep breath, and another, and suddenly he realized something strange. He hadn't thought about likes or followers or posts. He was just here, fully present. It scared him a little, but it also felt good. Aidan slowed down as he approached the bench. An old man sat there, his back straight, hands resting gently on a cane, and eyes fixed on the mountains ahead. He didn't move when Aidan stepped closer. He just said quietly, "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" Aidan nodded. Yeah, it is. He hesitated, unsure whether to leave or sit. The old man patted the space beside him. Go on. These mountains don't mind company. Aidan sat down slowly. The bench creaked beneath them. For a few moments, neither of them spoke. The mountain stood tall and still, touched by light and silence. I've been coming here every morning for 30 years, the old man finally said. It never gets old. You live around here? Aidan asked. The old man nodded. Just over that ridge. Raised my children here. Buried my wife here, too. Aidan looked down. I'm sorry. Don't be. She loved this place. It gave her peace, just like it gives it to me. And maybe, one day, to you. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Aidan was already awake. Something inside him had changed. He felt lighter, clearer, like a fog had lifted from his mind. He quietly slipped out of the cottage, careful not to wake his family. The cold air bit at his skin, and his breath formed clouds in front of him. He wore a hoodie, some old hiking boots, and carried a bottle of water and the journal he had started writing in. He didn't have a clear destination. He just knew he needed to climb. The trail behind the cottage led upward, snaking through tall trees and loose rocks. He had seen it before from a distance, but never dared to try it. Today was different. He thought of all the times he gave up too early. In school, in conversations, even in moments where all he needed to do was try. But not this time, not here, not now. He kept climbing. The trees grew thinner as the air became colder. Birds flew across the sky, their wings slicing through the silence. The ground was uneven, the rocks slippery, but he moved forward one step at a time. The next day, the sky changed. It began with a heavy stillness. The birds were quiet. The sky, once a clear blue, had turned grey. Clouds gathered above the mountains like slow-moving giants. Aidan stood on the porch of the cottage with his dad. Looks like a storm's coming, his father said. Aidan nodded. Yeah, it feels different. They stayed inside most of the morning, playing cards, reading, listening to the distant thunder. Aidan felt strangely uneasy. He felt proud of the change he was going through, but also scared. What if it didn't last? What if he went back to being the same? That afternoon, the rain came. Heavy, wild, and cold. It splashed against the windows, turned the trails into muddy streams, and swallowed the view of the valley in thick mist. Aidan stood by the window, watching it fall. The sound of the rain hitting the roof was steady, like a heartbeat. And then his little sister screamed. She had been outside, trying to pick wildflowers before the storm got worse. No one had realized she hadn't come back in. In a flash, Aidan and his parents rushed out. They found her crouched near the side of the trail, muddy, shivering, and scared. I slipped, she cried. I couldn't get back up. Aidan didn't hesitate. He climbed down the slope. The rain made everything harder, every step a risk, every rock slippery. But he didn't stop. He reached his sister, knelt beside her, and said, It's okay. I've got you. Carefully, he helped her up, held her hand, and guided her back to the trail. Each step was a struggle, but Aidan kept her calm. Just one more step, he said. You're doing great. When they finally reached the cottage, their parents pulled them inside, wrapping them in blankets. The fire crackled as they sat close, wet and muddy but safe. His sister looked up at him with big eyes. You came for me. Aidan smiled, brushing her hair back gently. Of course I did. The rain had stopped by morning. The clouds had moved on, leaving behind a clean, fresh world. Aidan walked alone along the trail. His legs were sore from the storm, and his clothes still smelled faintly of wood, but his mind felt clearer than ever. He returned to the old bench where the man had once sat. And this time he found him again, already there, sipping from a small tin cup, as if he had been waiting. "You came back," the old man said without turning his head. Aidan smiled. "I said I would." The old man nodded. "Most people say they will, but don't. The mountain only reveals itself to those who return." They sat in silence for a moment, letting the breeze pass through them, and then Aidan spoke again. "I've been writing," he said, opening his journal and reading one of his entries aloud. The old man closed his eyes and nodded. "That," he said softly, "is the beginning of wisdom." The road back home felt shorter, but everything looked different. The winding hills, once dull and annoying, now felt familiar, like old friends waving goodbye. He watched the trees go by, memorizing their colors, the way their branches moved in the wind. His parents noticed. "You okay back there?" his mum asked. "Yeah," Aidan replied. "Just thinking." She smiled. "Good kind of thinking," he nodded. Aidan sat in the back seat again, but this time he wasn't staring at his phone. Aidan felt it all at once like stepping into cold water, but instead of shrinking away, he sat up straighter. He had changed. He could feel it. His school friends messaged him. Memes, gossip, videos, he replied, but slower than before. He didn't feel the need to always respond. He started waking up earlier just to breathe in the morning air, before the world started shouting. As they crossed back into the city, the noise returned. Horns, flashing lights, giant billboards, people rushing in every direction. When they got home, everything was just as they had left it. The dishes in the drying rack, his room with the posters on the wall and the books on the desk, the charger dangling from the plug. But Aidan felt like a different person walking into it. Over the next few days, things moved fast. Weeks passed. Life had settled back into its usual rhythm: school, routines, crowds, traffic. But for Aidan, things were no longer the same. Something inside him had shifted permanently. He no longer rushed through his mornings. He took time to stretch, to breathe, to journal a thought or two. Some mornings he wrote just one sentence. Other times he filled pages. But every word came from the real him, not the version he showed the world before. One day during his English class, the teacher gave a writing assignment. Write about something that changed you. Aidan didn't hesitate. He picked up his pen and for the next 30 minutes, he wrote with a kind of flow he'd never felt before. He wrote about the mountains, the silence, the storm, the old man. He wrote about fear and how courage sometimes whispers instead of shouting. He wrote about discovering strength, not in lifting weights, but in lifting someone else. When he finished, his hands were shaking. He had poured his heart onto that paper. A few days later, his teacher pulled him aside after class. "I want you to read this to the whole school," she said. Aidan froze. "What? This is more than a school essay. This is a message people need to hear." He wanted to say no. He almost did. But then he remembered what the old man had said. Greater than real courage is showing up, even when your voice trembles. Aidan grew, not just in age, but in depth, in clarity, in quiet confidence. He still laughed with friends. He still went to school. He still lived in the same house. But inside, he was walking a new path. Not faster, not louder, just truer. He'd sit on the small bench in the park, the closest thing he had to the mountain. He'd watch the sky, listen to the breeze, open his journal and write. A place quiet enough to finally hear the truth echoing inside me. I used to think I was empty. Now I know I was just crowded with noise. He no longer feared being alone, because he knew when you're at peace with yourself, you're never truly alone. One day he wrote, maybe the mountain wasn't a place. Maybe it was a mirror. His words spread, not just at school, but online. Some people mocked them. Some ignored them, but many listened. One girl messaged, "I was going to give up, but your words helped me breathe again." "Thank you," Aiden replied. "You already had that strength. You just needed someone to remind you." He never tried to be a hero. He just tried to be honest. And in a world full of masks, honesty is revolutionary.